The economy of Indonesia is the largest in Southeast Asia and is one of the emerging market economies of the world. As an upper-middle-income country and member of the G20, Indonesia is classified as a newly industrialized country. It is the 15th largest economy in the world by nominal GDP and the 7th largest in terms of GDP. Also plays a significant role in Indonesia's market economy. However, since the 1990s, the majority of the economy has been controlled by individual Indonesians and foreign companies. In the aftermath of the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the government took custody of a significant portion of private sector assets through the acquisition of non-performing bank loans and corporate assets through the debt restructuring process. And the companies in custody were sold for privatization several years later. Since 1999, the economy has recovered, and growth has accelerated to over 4 to 6% in recent years. In 2012, Indonesia replaced India as the second fastest growing G20 economy, behind China. Since then, the annual growth rate has fluctuated around 5%. However, Indonesia faced a recession in 2020 when the economic growth collapsed to -2.07%. The worst growth since 1997 crisis. Corruption in public institutions has historically been the major hurdle in keeping foreign business away and seen Indonesia flail towards the middle of the Global Transparency International rankings. In the years immediately following the proclamation of Indonesian independence, both the Japanese occupation and conflict between Dutch and Republican forces had crippled the country's production, with exports of commodities such as rubber and oil being reduced to 12 and 5% of their pre-WW2 levels, respectively. The first Republican government-controlled bank, the Indonesian State Bank, was founded on 5 July 1946. It initially acted as the manufacturer and distributor of Ori, a currency issued by the Republican government which was the predecessor of rupiah. Despite this, currency issued during the Japanese occupation and by Dutch authorities was still in circulation. And the simplicity of the Ori made its counterfeiting relatively easy. Worsening matters. Between 1949 and 1960, Indonesia experienced several economic disruptions. The country's independence recognized by the Netherlands, the dissolution of the United States of Indonesia in 1950, the subsequent liberal democracy period, the nationalization of the Javaca Bank into the modern Bank Indonesia, and the takeover of Dutch corporate assets following the West New Guinea dispute, which all resulted in the devaluation of Dutch banknotes into half their value. During the guided democracy era in the 1960s, the economy deteriorated drastically as a result of political instability. The government was inexperienced in implementing macroeconomic policies, which resulted in severe poverty and hunger. By the time of Sukarno's downfall in the mid-1960s, the economy was in chaos with 1,000% annual inflation, shrinking export revenues, crumbling infrastructure, factories operating at minimal capacity, and negligible investment. Nevertheless, Indonesia's post-1960 economic improvement was considered remarkable when taking consideration of how few indigenous Indonesians in the 1950s had received a formal education under Dutch colonial policies. Following President Sukarno's downfall, the New Order administration brought a degree of discipline to economic policy that quickly brought inflation down, stabilized the currency, rescheduled foreign debt, and attracted foreign aid and investment. Indonesia was until recently Southeast Asia's only member of OPEC, and the 1970s oil price rise provided an export revenue windfall that contributed to sustained high economic growth rates, averaging over 7% from 1968 to 1981. With high levels of regulation and dependence on declining oil prices, growth slowed to an average of 4.5% per annum between 1981 and 1988. A range of economic reforms was introduced in the late 1980s, including a managed devaluation of the rupiah to improve export competitiveness, and the regulation of the financial sector. Foreign investment flowed into Indonesia, particularly into the rapidly developing export-oriented manufacturing sector. And from 1989 to 1997, the Indonesian economy grew by an average of over 7%. GDP per capita grew 545% from 1970 to 1980 as a result of the sudden increase in oil export. Revenues from 1973 to 1979. High levels of economic growth masked several structural weaknesses in the economy. It came at a high cost in terms of weak and corrupt governmental institutions, severe public indebtedness through mismanagement of the financial sector, the rapid depletion of natural resources, and culture of favors and corruption in the business elite. Corruption particularly gained momentum in the 1990s, reaching to the highest levels of the political hierarchy as Suharto became the most corrupt leader, according to Transparency International. As a result,